There's something you've been putting off, and you already know what it is. It's moved from 1 week to the next in your diary for a while now, and every time your eye passes over it, there's like this small drop behind your ribs. You've decided it's going to be difficult. You've worked out how it will go, who will be in the room, what they will think of you, and how you will feel walking back to the car afterwards. And that's strange because the thing is that you've never actually done it. Not once. You've built the entire thing out of a feeling, and then you've organized your month around that feeling. I want to talk about something I've watched happen twice in one morning in two separate conversations with two women who have never compared notes. Both of them have been carrying something heavy for weeks. Both of them had reorganized real, actual working days around the weight of this thing. And both of them, when they finally went and did the thing, came back slightly bewildered because it took a fraction of the time they had budgeted and almost none of the courage. One of them said it out loud in a way that's really stood out for me. She said, "I was making things harder than they needed to be." That's interesting. She wasn't talking about the task. The task was ordinary. She was talking about everything she had built on top of it while she was waiting. I think many women are doing this right now, quietly in the middle of otherwise very well-run lives. You're listening to Amplify with Purpose, Business and Life Unlocked. I'm Odette de Beer. This is where we have real conversations about building a business and a life that actually works. No scripts, no fluff, and nothing you'll have to pretend you didn't hear. If you're ready to lead with purpose and deliver with consistency, you're in the right room. Let's get into it. So, let me offer 4 things and then something practical that you can take into this week. The first is this. The fear is not irrational. It's just old. When you look at the thing you haven't done yet and you feel that drop, that tension, your brain is not malfunctioning. It's doing precisely the job that it was built for, which is to look at the unknown and go hunting for what could go wrong in it. That's a protective function. And for most of human history, it was the difference between coming home or not, because a saber-toothed tiger got you on the way. Whoopsie. The difficulty is that your brain builds its worst case out of whatever material it has at hand. And that material it reaches for first is generally your own history. Let me use myself as an example here because I'm a pretty good example. I've always hated exams. And while I was doing my degree, I was almost without exception pregnant every single time I had to sit an exam, which meant that I walked into every paper really worried that I couldn't put a thought together for long enough to create my first sentence. Pregnancy brain is real. I don't care what who says, and it's super humbling. And I was quite certain that I was going to fail every single paper. It never did. I never failed my papers. I passed them all. Woo! So you would think that that would settle the matter for me. It didn't, because years later, while I was doing my master's in leadership, no longer pregnant, totally capable, very much experienced, and really good at this whole business of thinking. And every time I sat down in front of an exam paper, the same dread came up from somewhere around my knees. It was horrible. I understand now what was happening. The fear had my old file open. It wasn't looking at the woman with a master's underway and a perfectly respectable track record behind her. It was looking at a very tired young woman who wasn't sure if she could finish a paragraph, and it was defending her with everything it had. Yay, good job. Now, I will tell you the part that hasn't changed at all, because I think that's important. I still take exams extremely seriously. My family will confirm this without hesitation. When I'm sitting an exam, the intense version of me is in the room. She would very much like everybody to be quiet and go somewhere else. Please, I need to think. Thank you. Yes, that still happens in my house every time I write an exam. Taking it seriously wasn't the problem. The dread was doing something else entirely. And the dread was working from information that had expired many years ago now. And that's the thing about old evidence. It doesn't just announce itself as old evidence. It arrives feeling like wisdom, because you know. The second thing is that it has a real cost. And the cost is almost never the fear itself. The cost is everything that queues up behind it. The decision that you didn't make, the conversation that you didn't open, the piece of work that sits 90% for a fortnight because finishing would require picking up the phone and phoning someone. The fear takes a morning, the avoidance takes a month. And there's a second cost that I want to mention very gently, but definitely, because it's the one that does the lasting damage. Every week you spend not doing the thing, you gather a little more evidence that you are the kind of woman who does not do it. It's not true. It's just what the pattern looks like from the inside. The third thing is what research actually has to say about this. I want to be careful here because we're in an era where it's very easy to overclaim. So I don't want to overclaim anything. But there is a study that keeps coming up for me. It was published in the journal Behavior Therapy in 2020. They asked people to record their worries as they arose over 10 days and then track what actually happened to those worries over the following month. Independent raters coded the outcomes. 91% of the worry predictions did not come true. Now, there is some honest framing here that is definitely deserved. The study involved 29 people, all of whom had been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, and all of whom were on treatment at the time. It's a small clinical sample, I agree. It doesn't tell us that 91% of everyone's worries are wrong, and anyone who tells you that that's the case is probably trying to sell you something. What it does give us is a signal, and the signal's worth having. Among people whose worries were serious enough to be treated, the overwhelming majority of the predictions turned out to be inaccurate. And the participants who saw the clearest evidence of that inaccuracy were the ones whose symptoms improved the most. Which means the useful bit was never the reassurance, it was recording the gap. They wrote down what they expected, they went and looked, and that gap between the two did the work. Now, that's pretty cool. The fourth thing that came from the conversation is the sentence I would have you take away if you take nothing else. Readiness is a decision rather than a feeling. That's gold. She'd been waiting to feel ready to do something, and the feeling just never turned up. And she began treating the absence as information. It was never information. It was just weather. If you wait to feel ready, you have handed the timing of your work to a mood. And moods are not accountable to anything, including your deadlines. Now, I want to say something that's underneath all of this, and I offer it the way I would offer it to you in my own kitchen as a friend chatting over a cup of coffee. So this is a take it or leave it situation. Do with it as you see fit. The Bible says that we have not been given a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And somewhere else it says that we have to take every thought captive. I have always found that this particular pairing is extraordinarily practical because it doesn't ask you to pretend that the thought's not there. It assumes that the thought will come, and it just says that you are the one who decides whether it gets to sit down at your table. You can acknowledge a fearful thought and still decide to build your week on it. Those are very two separate acts, and the second one is yours. There's a principle that I work from constantly, and that is that clarity precedes commitment. There's a principle I work from constantly, which is clarity precedes commitment. People cannot take real ownership of something they do not yet understand. And that includes understanding your own resistance. You are not going to decide your way out of this. Let me say that again. You are not going to decide your way out of this. You are going to look at it first. So here's the practical piece for this week. Take the thing that you've been carrying and date it. One question. Ask out loud if you can manage it. How old is this? Not the task itself, but the fear attached to it. Where did you learn it? How long ago? What was true about it at the time and what's no longer true now? You'll usually find a year, sometimes a specific room, and the moment you can put a date on it, something shifts because you stop arguing with a feeling and you start looking at the memory that produced that feeling. Feelings are very difficult to argue with. Memories can simply be out of date, and you're allowed to notice that. Then do one dated, provable thing. Not the whole task, but the email that starts it, or the appointment, or opening the documents and writing the first line. Badly if you must, it doesn't matter. Something small enough that the fear doesn't get to vote, and specific enough that on Friday you can say whether or not that thing happened. Both of the women moved this week, and neither of them moved because they stopped being frightened. They moved because they said the thing out loud in a room where somebody was going to ask them about it again. That's what accountability is actually for. It's not the pressure. It's the second pair of eyes on evidence you cannot read on your own. If you've been carrying something for weeks, and you already know that you are not going to shift it by yourself, that's exactly what the Growth Collective is built for. A small group of women in business every Monday where you say what you are going to do and somebody notices whether or not you did it. The link is in the show notes, and I would genuinely love to have you in the room. Whatever you decide about it, do this one thing for me this week. Find the thing you've been rehearsing and ask, how old is it? I think you will be surprised by the answer. Thank you for spending this time with me. I don't take it for granted. If today's episode moved something for you, please would you do 3 things? Follow the show so you never miss an episode. Leave a quick review. It genuinely helps other purpose-driven women find us. And send this one to the friend who needed to hear it. You know exactly who she is. You'll find me on LinkedIn and Instagram, and the links are in the show notes. And my DMs are always open. Until next time, lead with purpose, deliver with consistency, and go create the impact that outlasts you.